and my 5-year-old kindergartner clutching my jacket. Cars just don't stop. I reached out to Nathan Hale School, the Department of Traffic and Parking, State Representative Al Paolillo, Mayor Elicker, the New Haven Police Department, and the Alder of Ward 18, Sal DeCola, in desperate hope for a change. This should not be one more things put on the place of our school staff. With enough violence and shootings in schools nationwide, let's not have our kids killed before they even walk through the front doors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question number 1.
Thank you.
One for you right here.
Our next speaker is Miss Leslie Blateau.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Blateau. I'm a teacher and parent in New Haven Public Schools. And I just wanted to come before the board to share that so many people are working very hard right now, and so many people are also feeling very stressed. I come to the board this evening to share what I've learned after listening to some of the concerns of members of the NHPS community. And I come with the Comer guiding principle of no fault problem solving. I care about this district and our school communities, and I believe another way is possible. Yes, the issues impacting our schools are happening throughout the country. And yes, let's also remember that New Haven is a city with resources, creativity, and passionate and intelligent people who want to support the students, families, and educators and leaders of New Haven Public Schools. I worry that many teachers and school staff are working beyond their capacity right now. And this is not because we don't have deep capacity. We are skilled and compassionate educators, but this year is different. We have not had to work at this level of complexity and intensity in years past, and with this level of understaffing at the school level. For example, the deadline for a recent grant opportunity for teachers needed to be extended in order for more to apply. And it makes me wonder, what are the major obstacles and stressors for teachers that are interfering with their ability to take advantage of opportunities like this? What are the obstacles and stressors that are causing educators to leave NHPS for other districts or retire early? I urge this board to make it a priority to find out, why are we losing experienced staff? And I urge the board to then use our resources and our creativity to intervene, provide the necessary support, resources, compensation, and nurturing that will make people want to stay. School staff at every level are supporting our students and supporting each other, but we need more people in our schools. We need our students to have access to water. We need substitutes. We need opportunities to get our students out of the building to reconnect with each other and the community. We need time to collaborate with our fellow professionals in ways that are meaningful to us as experienced but stressed educators. And we need to do this work in developmentally appropriate ways, focus on our students' needs, many of whom are also exhausted and stressed. I value the time to come before this board and share these concerns, and I look forward to our continued collaboration to find solutions to the problems we're collectively facing. Appreciate the time, and I appreciate everyone's focus on the needs of our young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tony Criscola.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I can only echo everything that Leslie has said. As a matter of fact, it was much of what I was going to say. Teachers are being stretched to the limit. There are no subs. We have fewer social workers at my school than we had before, not more. Where's the COVID relief money? Our students need help now. It is almost November 1st. Fights are breaking out. Students are stressed. Teachers are stressed. And I think that we are going to start to reach the breaking point very soon. I had mentioned at one meeting that New Haven Public Schools somehow seems determined to go back to the 19th century. I also think, and I will reiterate, I think that we have missed a great opportunity to do something different with our schools. I'm sorry that it had to come from something as terrible as COVID, but I think that we're missing the opportunity. We are losing good staff. And I think we're losing, some teachers are ill. I don't know how much of that is related to the stress of this past year and a half. We're feeling it. The children are feeling it. And they need assistance that we as teachers do not know how to give. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a social worker. We need social workers. We need psychologists. We need more security staff. I don't know where the money is, but they have promised it. And we are waiting. But meanwhile, the school is bleeding staff. Maybe eventually they're going to start bleeding students as they look for other districts as well. I also just want to make a final comment. The other student representative to the Board of Education has not been present at meetings. Is there a method or a procedure that if the student rep does not bother to attend meetings without a legitimate excuse, and I don't know what it is, perhaps they should be removed and another election held so we can have a student who's willing and able to be the voice of the students, because we need to hear that too. Thank you very much for your time. Good luck with everything. God bless you all.
Thank you. Next, we have Kirsten.
You should start speaking now.
Kirsten, let me see if I can promote again. She may have accidentally declined to be promoted. Now she's rejoining us now.
Unmute yourself, please, Kirsten.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Hopes McFadden, and I literally feel like I'm fighting for our future. I will have to echo what Leslie Blateau and Tony Criscola said. Teachers are suffering from burnout, and it's only October. There's no coverage in the buildings. Teachers are being stretched thin. Classes are being split up, and so therefore students are not even receiving whatever the teacher has left behind for the sub to do, because there is literally no coverage in the building. Teachers are doing extra duty. And I do have a question. If the money is available for subs, where does that money go when you can't get subs? Because I believe that teachers are working extra hard, and maybe we need to be compensated for the extra work that we are doing. Other districts have recognized the value of their teachers by giving them a stipend to show their appreciation. Instead, New Haven negotiated a pay freeze for 1 year, and now the raises are less than what the steps were the year before. Teachers are feeling like they're not appreciated. I've had, there were at least 3 teachers at ESUMS who left the district to go to other districts where they were being paid $10,000 to $20,000, $30,000 more for doing the exact same job. I feel that that's going to happen more and more across this district. We're going to lose valuable teachers because we're not being appreciated. We're being stretched thin. We can't do all this work. This is not sustainable. It is not sustainable. I don't know how to say it any clearer. This is the third person saying it. I'm hoping you are hearing us. It is not sustainable. I understand there's a teacher shortage and a sub shortage across the district. I understand that, but something has to be done or people are going to be burnt out and you're not going to have anybody in the building. I know other schools who have everyone's sitting in the cafeteria. No learning is happening. And this is for several classes throughout the day. So basically they're just going to the school and being babysat. They're not being taught. I liken the ESSER grant. I know you said you can't use it for staff. You have to use it maybe for part-time, but not full-time. I liken that to saying that you go to the hospital, to the doctor, and you say, I'm having a heart attack. My heart is hurting. And the doctor says, well, you know what? We don't have any medicine for that. We're going to give you some medicine for the ingrown toenail that you have. Or you're on a Titanic and the ship is sinking.
Time.
And it's, you know what? We're going to make sure all the rooms are nice and neat, but we're not going to help you keep the ship from sinking. Please think about that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. At this time, we do not have any other hands raised.
Thank you, Ms. Hammonds. So we'll move into the action items. First item being the approval of the board meeting minutes for October 12th. Motion to accept, or to approve. Mr. Wilcox.
I move we accept the minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Any discussion? Mr. Wilcox?
I just have one minor thing under the Pledge of Allegiance. It should be Wilcox, not Wilson, reading the Pledge of Allegiance last time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Any other discussion? Okay, so we'll vote to approve the minutes with the corrections. Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mr. Conaway,
Yes.
Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Dr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Mayor Elder,
Yes.
and Ms. Lamar is not in, and I'm a yes as well, and so it's passed with corrections. Dr. Tracy, the personnel report.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening, board. We are happy to be here. We still have life. We're still healthy to some extent, and we are here. So thank heavens we're still here on the land of the living. So in the personnel, I'm asking that the board accept a very short action item for personnel report.
Dr. Jordan. You're muted, Dr. Jordan.
I move to accept the superintendent's personnel report.
Mr. Wilcox.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Bolton.
Thank you, Madam President. I just have three quick questions. On page 1 of the blue sheet, on the promotional appointments, there is a person who went from assistant teacher to school business manager. I have two questions related to that. One is, what was the original salary of the assistant teacher? Why don't we list that? I thought we usually listed the original and then the new salary. If not, then I stand corrected. My second question is, what exactly is a business manager? What is their job responsibilities? What do they do in the school?
So if I may answer, and not to sound glib or facetious or anything, Mr. Golson, business manager manages the business of the school, and they're primarily in the magnet schools that have a lot of funds allocated to them. Some of these schools have MSA funds. That's a magnet fund, and they also have inter-district funds along with general funds, and some of them also have, Title I funds. So there's a lot of monies to be handled. They handle the monetary aspect of the school. They do the ordering of materials for the school. They do the invoices for the school. They do a lot for those schools. So many of our magnet schools hire business managers to do that rather than the principal spending time to do that.
Understood. Thank you. My second question is related to the purple sheets. It is on page 3 under transfers, and there is a person who's moved from an administrative assistant. Oh, wait a minute, I think you answered this question. This person is actually going to City Hall, and you just listed this for informational purposes. Do you normally do that when someone leaves the staff and goes to the city or some other school district or whatever? Do you normally list that they're leaving and where they're going?
I think Miss Lisa Mack is on here somewhere. Yes, this is a normal thing because they're moving out of New Haven Public School to the city, but they're actually in the same union. So we're just informing the board that they're moving on to a different position.
But they're not our employee anymore, they're the city's employee, is that correct?
They're now city employee.
All right, thank you. And the third and final question I have is related to the persons below that, the bids, non-instructional staff. I'm wondering why those people aren't listed on the blue sheet as opposed to this purple sheet?
They're also city employees.
Oh, they're city employees.
Just giving you information in the spirit of transparency. We always do that, share when bids come out and where people are going.
All right, I've never seen that before. That's why I was wondering about it. I've never seen this. I've never seen bids on the blue sheet before, so I was a little confused.
They're changing locations.
But they're not our employees, they're the city employees.
They're city employees.
All right, thank you very much, Madam President.
Golson and Dr. Tracy. Any further discussion? Okay, so we will vote to approve Dr. Tracy's personnel report. Mr. Conaway,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Golson,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well, and so personnel report passes. Food service supply chain increases and shortages, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Foreman. Ms. Sherry raised her hand, but I don't see.
Yeah, so just promoted her.
Okay. You're gonna give the report?
Yep, there she goes.
I'm here. I think Michael has got called away, but I'm here to
He
answer.
just raised his hand as well, so I think he may.
Okay.
Need to be promoted, Ms. Hammond.
I just promoted Gormany as well.
Thank you. Williams.
Good evening, everyone. All right, so Gail and I are here to discuss the memorandum that was submitted to this board regarding the food service supply chain increases and shortages. As you know, nationwide, we are looking at food shortages, especially in food service programs in different municipalities in Connecticut. One of the things that we are experiencing is our price increases within our food contracts themselves and substitution of products. The way we bid our products in New Haven is we do an RFP and we get various products, but they're usually at a fixed cost, a fixed unit price for each of those products in our food service contracts. But due to COVID-19, what we're seeking approval from the board, which is stated in the memo, are two things. The first one is the ability to accept the increased pricing on currently allocated products. So we went to F&O with various contracts with food items, again, at those fixed unit price costs. So again, item number one is looking to be able to accept those price increases for food items. The second thing we're seeking approval is to accept food products that were not previously listed on the RFP from the current vendors that were awarded. And the reason we're asking for that is because, again, with the food service supply chain shortage, vendors are coming to us saying that they cannot supply the actual items, some of the items that were bidded on in the RFP, and they want to be able to substitute that so we can continue with the menus that are provided in the food service department. Now, the reason we're asking to blanketly for these blanket approvals is because normally we would go through the change order process, which could take a few days or a few weeks, depending on the timing that we go to F&O and when the board approves it. With this food service supply, with the food shortage going on, we cannot wait 2 to 3 days or weeks at a time to be able to accept substitute items or an increase in pricing. And Gail and I are monitoring the pricing increases that are going on with our vendors. But again, what we're asking this board to do is for food service to be able to accept substitute items and increase in pricing on unit pricing. Now, I do want to make one thing clear. We are not asking to blanketly increase contract amounts. What we are asking is to look at those items within the contract and be able to accept any increases that vendors are passing on due to the pandemic. If we do find the need to increase the price or the amount of the contract, we will go through the normal F&O process and get board approval. But again, to be consistent with menus and to keep food service operations going, we are seeking these two items as approval from the board. And I think it's important to realize that, remember, we are also, besides competing nationwide, competing with other Connecticut towns who are running into the same issues that we are having. The pandemic has definitely taken a toll on food service, and we are looking at the way that we are going to be bidding our contracts going forward to take into account, things that have happened during the pandemic. So Gail, I don't know if I missed anything or you want to add anything to this.
No, I'm just here for questions. It's just that it's been really challenging these last few weeks. It started in the beginning, and we have opted not to allow price changes because that's what our contract said. But it means that there's less and less items that we're going to be available to us. And so we will, of course, manage the pricing and make sure that it makes sense and that we can sustain it for the program.
And just for to add one more item, we did update our memorandum to even show that the federal government has recognized this problem, and attached to our memo, you will see also a memo basically outlining and sort of suspending some of their guidelines because they realize there's a food shortage as well, food service and supply chain shortage as well. So with that, Gail and I will answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Goldsman and Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Madam President. Before I ask some questions, I do have a couple of questions. Before I ask questions, I'd like to have a point of a question about procedure here. I see that this food service and supply chain increases shortages is listed under action items, but they did not list the two actions that they wanted us to take. And I didn't look at the memo until we just they just brought it up. I didn't even know there were actions that they wanted us to take. I thought it was just a memo, informational memo. So to be as clean as possible, could we possibly amend the agenda to add these two items for approval separately for approval? Because they're two different issues.
I don't know that it's needed, and I'll ask Attorney Alexiadis if he's on, but it's listed under the action items, which states discussion and vote anticipated on each topic.
Okay.
So-
Yeah,
And that's why we list them that way, so that we know that these are items to be voted on.
But I would just point out, Madam President, however the board decides to move on, it's fine. It's not a big deal. But I would hope in the future, we would do like we are doing already on the agenda and then list each individual item that needs to be voted on. So it's clear to folks who are looking at the agenda, not just us, but to people out there in the community, that there is exactly what the item we're voting on, because it's not real clear with that description what we're voting on. So I would hope in the future, if we don't do it today, in the future, that we would have the agenda more clear. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Fulton. Dr. Johnson?
Thank you for that update.
Is Mr. Alexiadis gonna comment on my?
Attorney Alexiadis, go ahead. You're at the.
I didn't realize
Go ahead.
comment was called for. I'm sorry, Mr. Goldson. I'm just having difficulty understanding how you would have that different than how it's stated. If you would explain that to me, please. Because I think for Freedom of Information Act purposes and agenda purposes, that gives notice of that there will be a discussion and possible action with regard to the topic. So what additional information would you like to see there, Mr. Golson?
There's two different topics here. There's one about increased pricing on allocated products. And then the second one is on accepting products that are not listed within the RFP. That's not clear when you read the agenda. If you look at every other item on our agenda that are action items, we're very clear what we're voting on. Very easy to follow. Everybody knows what we're voting on. On this one item, it's not clear. Are we voting on increases? Are we voting on shortages? No, we're voting on actions to deal with increases and shortages. And we don't have that action listed. So I thought it would be clearer, well, not just for us, but for future folks that are looking at this agenda, that they would see exactly what we voted on. And again, I'm not going to make a big deal of it. If the president doesn't think and the rest of the board doesn't think we should amend the agenda, that's fine. I just thought it'd be cleaner. Thank you.
So my question, therefore, if I may continue, is the memo posted, Mr. Gormley, the memo that Mr. Gormley spoke of, is that posted on the website? I would also note that I reviewed the memorandum and the Department of Agriculture memo that's attached to it, and what Mr. Gormley and Ms. Sherry are proposing seems to me to be entirely consistent with the federal program as indicated in that memo. But just if you could tell me if that's posted on the website, and so I think, but when you cross-reference the two of those, you have the notice in the agenda and the detail in the memorandum that's posted. I think that covers it. You may, you're welcome to amend the agenda and provide more detail, but
I would, Madam President, I would withdraw my point here, but I would just say people shouldn't have to cross-reference. It should be very clear. You should have to go back and look at 2 or 3 documents to understand what's going on here. I don't know if I see the agricultural memo in our package. I do see the memo from them. I don't see the agricultural memo. I don't know if that was posted after we got our packages, but I'm not going to make a big deal of it. I have other questions related to these items. So, Madam President, if you just want to move on, I'm fine with that.
Thank you, but your point is well taken, though, Mr. Bolton. Go ahead.
Can I address some of the questions I had related to the memo? Madam President,
Yes.
can I continue? Okay, thank you. Mr. Gormley, did I hear you correctly that you said that the overall contract will not change? It just may be items within the contract and prices within the contract that change?
Correct. So what we're saying is at the moment, we're not looking at increasing the contract amounts. We're looking at price increase on products and adding additional products. But again, as you know, food service is fluid depending on the menus and everything that go on throughout the year. So if there is a needed increase in the contract amount, we will definitely go through the normal process through F&O and this board's final approval with that increase.
All right, thank you. The last comment that I would make on this, Madam President, is that you know, we've heard since I was in school many years ago how terrible the school food is. You know, I visited a school just before the pandemic and had lunch, and it tasted like cardboard, quite frankly. And I don't want, you know, I don't. This is not to put down our food staff, but we just don't have good product for what we're paying for it. And I, you know, I hate to say it. I'm not trying to put down our staff, but it's just not great food. And I'm going to vote affirmative on this, but I hope one day we're able to improve our menu so that we're not wasting so much of this food. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe our student representative who sees it every day could update me. Maybe it's gotten a lot better since the last time I ate at the schools. But I just hope I know that there's a committee that works on this, but I hope one day we get to a point where we have more people who like the food than we do that don't like it. Thank you, Madam President. You're muted, Madam President.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Golden. Dr. Johnston and then Mr. Wilcox.
Thank you for that update. And I do agree with you, Darnell. I'd like to know, like, what are some of the things that are really, where are we feeling the increases as far as the food that we're getting for the students? Do you know that now, or is this like a preemptive, have to wait to see?
If I want me to speak, our chicken, any of our chicken products, they wanted to raise anywhere from 10 to 15%. So we've really kind of tried to eliminate offering some chicken products because of that pricing. We are strictly just using items that we can get from our USDA commodity directly. And I'm trying to change the menu because I didn't have a way to allow some of those price increases. The other items would be even bread and grains. They're having a problem keeping up. It's mostly producing items as well as the prices for the vendors are finding that the price when they go to purchase the chickens to make into products that we use, they've gone up, doubled the pricing. So potatoes is another one that they're saying, but hopefully all of these will, in months ahead, they should get better versus worse. We did have our vendor who supplies our hamburgers cancel our entire school order going forward. So I'm trying to find another vendor, and we do have a vendor that's willing to do it that was in our contracts, and we want to add that burger onto, that's a substitution. No price increases too much there.
And my second part of my question is, would it behoove us to try to do a little bit more local business, like with local, or, I mean, you said USDA, I remember at one of the meetings years ago, I was with you, I know there are a lot of things that we have to do, but is it worthwhile for the district to use this opportunity to become a little bit, you know, use local farms and meet people and all that other kind of stuff?
Yes, and we do that as well. We do try to source local farms to supply us. They're just not enough for the quantities that we might need. We've also looked at our local bakery, Loopy's, that's in New Haven, to see if there's a way that he could also supply other bread items. And he just said, I probably could, but I need at least a week's notice to be able to bring in that product to make it for you. So we've reached out to them to see if they can help us as we go forward as well.
Dr. Johnson.
Sorry, did you call me? Or, okay,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
She's all set.
Thank you. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion, if I may.
Can we wait? Mayor Elicker had a question as well.
Okay.
I just had a quick comment. I wanted to commend Gail and your team for the hard work that your staff has put in since the beginning of the pandemic. As someone with one daughter that pretty much only likes bread, and it's all I can do to get her to eat things, I know that your job is not easy and really appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Wilcox.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion, and that would be that we approve the request for the remainder of this fiscal year for food service to be able to have accept increased pricing on currently allocated food products within the existing food contracts, and to accept food product not previously listed within the RFPs from the currently awarded vendors as substitutions from the vendor.
Second.
Discussion. Okay. Mr. Fiore.
I would just like to say again, thank you to Gail. The food lunches are obviously very essential to all the students who aren't able to eat at home, and I just want to highlight that the food staff, they do really good work with what they're given, and they're really lovely people, and they brighten a lot of people's days. And it's hard to find. I understand it's hard to find some really good quality food for so many students, but I really do want to highlight the importance of it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Fiore. Dr. Junior, and then Mr. Conway.
I'd actually like to echo what Anthony said. I know a lot of these folks personally, and we can't possibly feed 20,000 kids with hot meals. And I think we also need to distinguish between flavor and nutritional value. I would love to, a lot of stuff that tastes good is not necessarily good for me. I'm a cheesecake person, and I'm also diabetic, so I can't do that. And I also have to ingest foods that are not as tasty, but they have the nutritional value that I need. So I would hope that people would not forget the fact that we're faced with one of the greatest challenges in the history of our country with this pandemic, as well as the demise in the heads of some people's ability to think critically and to accept the fact that we're one nation and that we should be united around our values. Unfortunately, some of the values are not what they should be. So let's try to help people understand that I think everybody's doing the very best they can. And there's still places that we need to go that we haven't gone. And there might be more crises ahead, because I'm not optimistic about the supply chain. And I'm also not optimistic about the ethics of certain businesses that use this as an example to enrich themselves at the expense of the populace. So it may get worse before it gets better. I just want to commend you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Conway?
Yes, as being, on the food service task force, I hear this a lot more. So, but I could see where Mr. Goldstead is saying that things need to be cleared up. Actually, those were some of the same questions that we had at our F&O committee. But the challenges of the pandemic, I think, is bringing this on, because I really just, even compare my own personal food bill, and I go to some stores, some stores where the shelves are they're just not as they're just not as full as they were. So I could imagine what it does for an institution. And it is those things that we grow that people are having troubles with, or we produce chicken, beef, grains, so I think that those are things that the food service task force we discussed, and I think that's what they're bringing in. So I totally understand the increase and the shortage, and I certainly support this. Thank you.
Mr. Conley. Mr. Fiore?
I just wanted to echo what Dr. Joyner said about the value and the balance of what tastes good and what's good for you. And almost to counter what he said, I feel like good food, it's highly motivating to students. Having a good meal in the middle of the day can really get you going to finish it. And, it's just, God, you can't highlight it enough how important it is for a student to eat something good. And it's really important. And for the students who, some students do come to me and talk about it. And for those students, for other students who might listen to this, you are being heard and you are being listened to. And there are people who are trying to improve it for you.
Good food makes me sleepy.
Thank you, Mr. Fiore. Mr. Goldson?
Oh, thank you, Madam President. I want to echo Mr. Conaway's comments. This pandemic stuff related to the supply chain is real. I mean, I go grocery shopping and I see how much chicken costs now. I see how much beef costs now. I could see why I wouldn't be surprised if the chicken products decided not to supply us after a while, because it's going to get worse before it gets better out there, and we should be prepared for it. And secondly, I'd like to just make sure it was clear what my comments were earlier. One of the reasons why we set up this food service task force is because people were complaining about our children throwing away a lot of food during the day. And we were trying to figure out a way to make it more appealing to them. And I'm just echoing those comments, and don't want us to forget it, that, no matter what the supply chain is doing, we still need to provide them with food that they will not toss, because it's a waste for the taxpayers and it's a waste for the students that they're not getting those meals that make them want to go back to class and work, or even those good meals that make them, as Dr. Joyner said, want to go to sleep. So I know that the staff, the food folks are hardworking. They carried us through this pandemic. They went to work when other people didn't. And I absolutely applaud them for what they do. And again, they work with what they have and try to make it as good as possible. We have to give them better tools. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson. Okay, so no further discussion. We'll vote on the food services supply chain. Dr. Jackson?
Did you call me?
Yes.
We're doing the vote.
Oh,
Okay, I'm sorry. My kids are talking to me. Sorry. Yes.
Mr. Conaway?
Absolutely, yes.
Dr. Jordan?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
Mr. Fiore?
Yes.
Mayor Ellison?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. And so passes. Finance and operations, Mr. Wilcox?
Thank you very much. Before I make the motion to move these items, I'm just asking if any board members want any items moved separately. Hearing and seeing no one needing that, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. And that is that we approve the 3 abstracts, the 9 agreements, the 2 contracts, and the 1 purchase order modification as listed in the agenda and as recommended by Finance and Operations Committee.
Second.
Properly seconded, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll And a vote on the FNO items. Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. And so, FNO items pass. And students report, Mr. Fiore.
Nothing too specific to report. I would like to highlight though something that was mentioned at the beginning of the meeting of teachers and teachers leaving. And something that just struck me as, obviously teachers are worth their weight in gold. They are the foundation of our schools. And I really do think that we need to do whatever we can to have the teachers stay in New Haven.
Thank you, Mr. Fiore. Dr. Jackson, you have a comment or question?
I just have a comment because there was in the public participation, there was a comment specifically referenced to a student board of ed member. And I really want to say that, I want to say publicly that and I'm speaking for, we don't do that to our student board members. We don't make them feel if they can't come or because that's not a rule. And if she's listening or her family is listening, we got enough going on than to stick out a student. And I just want her to hear that. And I want Anthony to know that we don't do that. And I don't think it was, I don't know what the reason for that was, but we don't do that. And honestly, to the public, I don't want to see that anymore. The students are taking their time, and if she can't come, she might have told Dr. Joyner, because I know that they talk to him and he helps them with the reports and stuff. So I just want to say, wherever she is, she's doing what she's supposed to be doing, and that that in no way represents how I feel about our students. And I didn't like that.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Dr. Joyner, and then Mr. Goldson, and then Mr. Conway.
I'm going to try to say this as diplomatically as I can. A good example is that when we had a Tuesday meeting, Anthony couldn't come because he works. And I'm not going to put any student's business out there, but when you make a comment like that, you need to have walked a mile in that person's shoes. And I'm really disturbed by it, quite frankly. And I would hope that we not use public comment in that way. Because it's a board matter in terms of trying to monitor the attendance of students. And please, people who comment, don't use public comment to attack people or whatever, because you don't know what they're dealing with, what they're going through. And it's inconsistent with the spirit of no fault consensus and collaboration that was alluded to when the first speaker spoke, which was good. And I won't say this, but it's a real problem because of, I'll talk about it later, but please don't do that again.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Goldson.
Thank you, Madam President. We have to be real careful about how we address people who address this this board. I think many of us, if not most of us, know that person who brought the issue up, but I don't think it was brought up as an attack on the student or an attack on the board. I would think it was brought up more as what is the policy in place to deal with absentee board members, whether it's a student member or another member. I think people, if I were, or if Dr. Joyner were absent for an extended amount of time, I think that people from the public would say, how do we deal with a person we elected who is not adequately representing us? I don't think it was an attack on the student. I've been raising this issue at a couple of board meetings previously about our role in helping our students not just attend meetings, but actually be productive members of the board, focus their energies on issues that are important to them and how to address those issues with this board. Because this, we're a bunch of adults who have a lot of years under our belts, are comfortable in where we are, and kind of dominate. So we have to find a way to help them do what we do. And I know when I was a teenager, I can't imagine sitting on a board of adults and trying to find my place on that board. So we have to do more as board members. And I'll admit, I haven't done as much as I should do. We have to do more to reach out to our students and figure out how we could be helpful to them and not attack the messengers, but instead look at the message and figure out how we could fix the problem. Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Goldson, Mr. Fearon.
I would just like to, on behalf of Ms. Chiron, because I imagined she would say this, I just want to say thank you for coming from a place of understanding. And, as a student, it could be sometimes hard to, fully understand the responsibility of a position that requires a lot of attention. And also to that parent or teacher, I'm sorry, I forgot to catch her name, and other people who have this concern. It's a valid concern. But what I will say is that, what we do offside the cameras, that we send emails, we, make sure that we're caught up to date. And although it may not look like we're always active in what we're doing, we are trying. But, thank you for the concern.
Thank you, Mr. Fearon. Teaching and learning. Dr. Drummond?
Okay, this is a difficult report for me because I recognize as a former teacher, coach, and principal that the context that you work in is everything. And we're in a historic phase of American education where there's so many threats to what we're trying to do. But we have to press on and figure this out as best we can. The Teaching and Learning Committee has been working diligently to try to establish some systemic initiatives that will be across the district, and some great leadership from the superintendent and the assistant superintendent and the subject area folks. We've heard from students, principals, teachers, parents over the last year and a half. And what we want to do is, if you can visualize it, is that we want to have a real emphasis on language development across all content areas. Why? Because any scientist will tell you that humanity survived because of language and cooperation. And if we're going to help these kids get beyond test scores, and that's what we should be aiming for. And Mayor Elka made that point in his debate, that we should be teaching beyond the test. And some of our children just don't have the word knowledge in their early development. Pamela Augustine made that point, citing the Hart and Risley study about vocabulary development. There are some children who come to school with more than adequate vocabulary for the grade level they're assigned to. And there are some children who come to school with a less than adequate vocabulary, as well as a language that is not English. And so they have a triple quandary: poverty and limited literacy in their native language, and virtual no literacy in the language that is the language of discourse in this society. So Dr. Tracy is bullish on that. She actually wrote her dissertation on the K-3 reading programs. And all the research points to specific vocabulary instruction, general academic vocabulary, and content-specific vocabulary, reading, writing, and speaking across all content areas. And so we're going to be developing vocabulary lists that we'll be sending home to the kids. And we're going to ask parents to help out, older siblings to help out, because this is something, if we're going to beat this, challenge. Everybody has to pitch in. And we're going to be doing that. We're going to be asking that every child in the district read a book of choice independently. And they should choose their own books because interest is a prime motivator of learning. And we have to be able to raise the funding and gather the support to try to get a wide range of read materials in our schools, so that if your little brother or sister or your child has a reading interest, that child can find that. And we have some great partners that we've had over the years, and we want to be the city that reads and thinks, not just read, but reads and thinks. And so that's another element of the policy. And when it's finally written, it'll be more in depth because it will talk about the imperative as well as the research behind it, and it will call for changes in assessment. We're gonna have to get away from, and a number of teachers have expressed this, multiple choice, fill in the blanks, and have more authentic assessments that's more like what a person has to face in the real world, where you have to create things and do projects and work together as a team. So the whole notion of portfolio assessment, cooperative learning, project-based learning, a number of schools are doing that very well. Mastery learning is something that we're gonna have to do as a district. Professional development, we have to bring everybody around because we're talking about a new type of system that's based on the needs of kids, based on the interests of kids, and based on the challenges that they face in our culture. Roles and responsibility, we can't expect the schools to do it all. We can't expect the principal to do it all, the superintendent, the mayor. Everybody has to pitch in. And if we send vocabulary list home, or read material home, then that sort of thing should be monitored by the home. And as Marion Wright Edelman said when she told her parents that she didn't have any homework, they say, well, assign yourself. And from 7 to 9 o'clock in that household, everybody's working on learning something. And that's critically important. And I think the other piece that's critically important in our system is that we have 50 different languages, and we have multiple cultures, and we have multiple lifestyles and orientation, and every single child counts. And we have to be a district that presses upon the larger community the need to embrace, accept, and learn about cultures other than themselves. If we're going to reduce some of the tension that we have, and we're better off here than a whole lot of places. I can't think of a single place in this country that I'd rather live in than New Haven. And I've lived in a lot of places, and I've been to a lot of places. But there are people in this community who try very hard to get along and to work across differences. And there are people in this community that are so compassionate that they enrich their lives by taking on children that other people have abandoned. And so I believe it's here we have to continue to work together to work it out. And that's why I keep pushing this whole notion of celebrating ethnic heritage. We took down the Columbus statue, and the Board of Alders voted to have Italian Heritage Day. And we need to make sure that on our next calendar, that it's very clear that we celebrate that, as well as Asian heritage and so on and so forth. And that we celebrate all of the cultures that are in this city. But we have to develop a blend of activity from all cultures that are aimed at what we're all about as a nation. And that's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all people, regardless of any type of extraneous quality. So I'm hoping that I can get the board behind this. I don't believe there's a single board member who would be against independent reading for all students. I don't think there's a single board member who would be against vocabulary development for all students, content specific and general academic vocabulary, reading, writing, and speaking across the content areas, and critical thinking. But we need a major public relations campaign to help people understand what we're trying to do. And just as we're asking the kids to read, we need to read. We need to read, and I'll read a lot. And I don't know if I can read much more, but it's based on my interests more than anything else. And so we all could benefit from that. And we need to stop using social media as a source of knowledge, because oftentimes it's not the case. And so I want to commend Ms. Velasquez, Dr. Tracy, and all the members of the TL committee, as well as the board and Jim and Joseph Lumpkin, because Jim and I are having a discussion now about student behavior. And we'll talk about that more at the next board meeting. But we can prepare the meal, but we have to make sure that people come into the restaurant and sit down and enjoy it in a respectful manner. And we have some ways to go in terms of helping our students understand the need for the kind of behavior that's required to learn in school and to get along in the world. And so we're going to be bringing that to you at the next one. But we're at a point now where we can put the learning elements and the instructional elements in the policy, but we have to put in what we expect from students and the kind of support we need from parents in order to get that. And if parents can't get it done, then they need to let us know where we can be helpful. I'm not so naive to believe that a child walks out of the house doing everything that the parent asked them to do. And because I worked in the juvenile court system, I know that some kids don't listen to their parents. But we have to have schools that are safe and orderly, both inside and around them. We can't have people hanging around our schools, adults hanging around our schools, using drugs, doing things that affects the learning climate. And we certainly can't have people in school that are looking at these TikTok challenges and talking about slapping people and tearing up stuff and throwing toilet paper all around the bathroom. That's disgusting and it's inappropriate, and we should not accept it under any circumstances. So we're gonna have to talk about behavior as we move forward, adult behavior and child and adolescent behavior, because it won't work unless people are working cooperatively to take advantage of what we have to offer. That concludes my report, and I'm sure that there might be some other stuff added to that when Dr. Tracy comes on and does her report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Fiore?
I would just like to echo what Dr. Jonas said about the cultural celebrations. I feel like as a student and as just a person, celebrating one's cultural backgrounds and heritage is extremely important. And as a student, I feel like that could really make students feel appreciated and valued. And I think this is very important for the social community of the New Haven students.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you, Mr. Fiore. Any further questions, Dr. Tracy?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, President Rivera. We have three things that we're going to go through rather quickly, and approved grants, budget update. Unfortunately, Ms. Hannums is out today, and also Ms. Juanita. Transportation update, Mr. Carl Jackson, who is here, will give us. So as we promised, we will start out with, again, highlighting our core values, our mission, vision of the district, and our major priority areas that we're focusing on. Again, our core values are equitable opportunities, culture of continuous improvement, high expectations, collaboration. Our priority areas are academic learning, youth, family, community engagement. We have organization efficiencies, trying to get systems and structures in place so that things flow smoothly in and across the organization, culture and climate, and talented educators. And of course, the mission is projected up there. What we want to provide opportunities for all of our young people from pre-K through 12th grade, so that in the end, they become successful critical thinkers, problem solvers, and also being ready for college, career, and life. And our vision, again, is to make New Haven one of the best districts ever, not only in the state of Connecticut, but the nation. And I think together we can do it when we keep our focus in the right place. So thank you, Dr. Joyner, for talking about what we're discussing in teaching and learning. And then we will also be implementing. A lot of things fail in the implementation stage, and so we want to make sure that those things are happening. I know Ms. Velasquez is focusing on monitoring, progress monitoring. Because if we don't progress monitor, then we won't hold anyone accountable for what is happening. And these are district initiatives that we are making sure that we monitor that they happen across the system. And every time there is anything for change, there's always sometimes pushback on that change, but our students need that, our students deserve that. We work with our teachers to make sure that these things are implemented. Thank you, Ms. Hammonds. So I want to share with you some of the grants that have been approved so far. I heard folks say that, yes, we have a lot of money. We have ESSER grant of 30 million. We have the Alliance, the ARP ESSER of 80 million. We have the Alliance Priority of 20 million. We have the English Learners Grant, Bilingual Grant, Title I and II, about 17 million. We have IDA, which is Special Ed, 21st Century, you name it, etc. Extended School Hours Grant. We have a lot of grants that have specific areas in which we have to spend these funds. One of the things we did not want to do is to have what we call a cliff at the end of these grants. We want to be able to be fiscally responsible so that when we're done with these grants, we're not having people going over on general funds, or New Haven will be in deep trouble if we do that. So we have a way of doing it so the burden after these grants will not be put on our general funds. So I just wanted to say that. One of the great things we have done though with some of these grants is reduce class sizes in the elementary level, grades 1, 2, and 3, because we anticipated what would have happened after COVID, after the pandemic and students coming back to school with many levels behind their grades, which is what our teachers are experiencing. So we have situations now where kindergarten, where students have missed entire pre-K and they're now in kindergarten, missed entire kindergarten and they're in first grade, etc. Right up the ladder like that. So our teachers, yes, are struggling. And I must be the one to admit that our teachers are struggling, our principals are struggling, other workers in the environment are struggling. We have an uptick in behavioral issues in the schools, and we also anticipated that that would happen. And yes, we have invested in more social workers, in more guidance counselors, but many of these challenges are sometimes beyond what needs to happen. We're still reaching out to find a bunch of part-time workers to support the students in the classroom environment or in the school environment. We have challenges. And I told the Board of Elders last week when we met with them that we do have a lot of challenges around mental health issues, social emotional learning issues. We do have those things. There is a shortage of teachers. There is. Put on top of many teachers who are out in FMLA. So we have a shortage of teachers. And it's not just New Haven, this is nationwide. Shortage of bus drivers, shortage of teachers, shortage of, we have increased last year, the board allowed us to increase the sub salary up to $100 per day to make us competitive. We can't even find subs. So it is crucial. There are issues that we're faced with that we're trying our best to mitigate as much as possible. Working with YFCE to work with our students, working with Clifford Bears to work with our students, working with a whole bunch of different people to make sure that we're reaching the needs of our students. So I just wanted to go on record to say that, yes, there are a lot of challenges. In terms of our budget update, it's very, very simple. This time we do not yet have the special funds yet on this, but Ms. Hammonds has spelled it out that what you're looking at in the budget expenditure for the first quarter ending September 30th, 2021, $16.6 million or 8.72% of the adopted budget that we had. And of that, we have spent to date, year-to-date actuals, we have spent $16.6 million of that. And we have $73 million in encumbrances, which would leave a balance of, we show us a $101 million, et cetera, et cetera. So the next time when we come, Ms. Hammonds will share some more report to us along with the special funds aspect of the grant so you can see how we're drawing those down. One of the things I need to say, although the board, the state approved the ARP-ESSA grant, we have to wait until we receive the award letters before we can even start spending from that. And so when that comes through, Ms. Hammonds will have to set up accounts for the various school and the different departments before we can even start drawing on those funds. So that's just an update on that. And okay, that's just an update.
Mr. Golden?
Madam President, I guess this is more of a future question for when Ms. Hannah returns. I would like to know how we end up encumbering $4 million more for transportation in a year when we're providing less transportation, or when the transportation company is providing less transportation or less buses to the school district. So I'd like for that question to be answered at the next board meeting. Thank you, Madam President.
How we end up encumbering like $4 million more, $4 million more in transportation.
Right, transportation, our budget is 24.6 million, and we encumbered 28.5 million, leaving us with a 3.9 million deficit in that line at this point.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We'll check on that.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Golden.
Okay.
Dr. Tracy.
The next part of this is Mr. Carl Jackson is on here for transportation update. But before he gets there, I need to share with the board, and I think if you were watching or reading the news, you would notice that Miss Eva Velasquez wrote a proposal to Rosa Dolores' office with the help of the mayor's office, for $2 million to start programs for kids in marketing, which I think is a great idea. And so Rosa DeLauro came down today, Congresswoman, to announce that publicly. And we should see that it's for manufacturing, and that's going to help our students greatly. And I think that's a great piece of news for us as we look for ways to engage our students and to help them to understand that college is not the only way that one can, gain gainful employment and survive in this society. And so it's a great gesture through the mayor's office and Rosa Dolores' office to have this happening for New Haven public school students. So I just wanted to highlight that news. And so we move into transportation update, Mr. Carl Jackson. Mr. Jackson? You're muted, Mr. Jackson. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy, Madam Chair, and members of the board. I'm going to give an operational update. This is kind of an update from the last time I reported out, and it's reflective of the driver routes and driver availability. So the current count is still 301. That's how many routes do we have to cover. Drivers assigned to routes now is 278, which is a four driver increase. So still short 23 drivers to make up the 301. But we lost 4 additional drivers due to resignations. So we have 14 drivers out on FMLA, and we have staff from first student offices, 7 staff who are driving buses to try to make up the differences. In addition to supervisors, they are also using drivers from other districts, for example, Camden and other locations, to bring them into New Haven to try to make up the differences. That number actually is up to 10 people that they're bringing from other districts. So they have about 33 applications that are new, about 29 plus 1 pending, and about 19 folks that are in training. So, and 4 of those 19 are behind the wheel. So there's some progress, but then we lost a few more drivers. And so we're, working on this every day. With respect to COVID testing, to comply with the governor's executive order 13G, First Student has 364 contract staff that work for New Haven Public Schools. That's drivers, monitors, and dispatchers, mechanics, and everything. Of that number, 240, are fully vaccinated. But they have another 117 who opted for testing. All right. Let's see here. You have some folks that have had at least one shot. That number is 12. And then for COVID-related reasons, we have 9 drivers that are out either for testing positive or quarantine. So in addition to that, one of the big challenges that we're facing is that despite our best efforts, we still have to combine routes to make up the differences. And it's very frustrating to parents, and as well as school buildings, because oftentimes teachers have to, and administrators have to stay at buildings, an hour and a half later than they should, as well as in the morning. With buses being combined, we can have buses that have been as much as an hour late or even more. So, I did a little due diligence and called around to the largest school districts in the states and talked to my counterparts just to see if we were an anomaly or if this is real. Everything that we see in the papers, is it really happening? And they confirm that it is. All right, that they are having the same exact problems. Case in point, I learned today that there's some smaller districts in the state that opted to go remote, at least partial time, rather than try to deal with bus situations that are unworkable. And I also learned, on a national level, that there's been a lot of talk about, whether or not the drivers' pay have been competitive. So I asked around at some of the larger districts, your Waterbury's, Hartford, Bridgeport, other areas, just to see whether or not First Students' driver pay was competitive. And they pay more generally than some of the other districts. However, we're not stopping there. We're going to have some brainstorming. One area that we really need to address is communication, because even though we can have an understanding of how many buses are going to be late in any given morning or any given afternoon, getting that information out to parents and to school has been somewhat problematic. So I met internally with some staff at New Haven Public Schools that do that on a regular basis. And I'm going to try to, bridge a gap between the information we get from First Student and how we can get it out to parents faster. One way is through technology that I'm working on that should happen in the next couple of weeks. And the other way is just a direct email or messaging to parents and the school to get that information out faster. It doesn't solve the problem, but it's just another tool to let people know what's about to happen so that they can manage their life. For example, if we get the information out to parents faster, then they can, make a decision whether to bring their child to school or to wait for a bus that could be 35, 40 or more minutes late. Challenges, or headwinds that are coming is that the change of time. Next month, this time, we're going to fall back, which means it's going to be darker sooner. And, we're going to discuss that as, how we can work around that the best way we can, so that we don't have, children out in the dark waiting to get home. So there's a lot of issues, and the parents, I talk to parents every day, and I certainly, empathize with their frustration, and I let them know that we're doing everything that we can. I talk to the bus company every single day. We can't solve every single problem that they have, but we certainly look at it against the measures that we currently have. And we do our best when we can. And unfortunately, sometimes we can't. So we're working on it. It's consistent with some of the things that you heard during the course of this meeting that's happening around the state. There's shortages, virtually in every sector of not just New Haven Public Schools, but service areas where people are needed to carry out the work. And transportation is no exception, but we're doing everything that we can to try to make it palatable for parents and for teachers and all stakeholders involved. So that's my update.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Thank you. Okay, that is my report, but I wanted to go back on the teacher shortage that we have. I want to say that I must publicly express gratitude to those teachers who have decided to give up their preparation time. Of course, we compensate them for that, to service areas where teachers may not be there for whatever reason, or there's a shortage. And so for those teachers who have given up their prep time, I want to commend them for stepping in to help their schools, because it's a real shortage. So thank you, teachers who have done that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy and Mr. Jackson. Mr. Bolton, and then Mayor Williger.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for that report. One number that was missing that we received last time we got a report from the administration was the number of children that were on the average, daily average of children late to school. I think the number at the last meeting we got was something like 900. Has that improved any, or is it still the same? Has it gone up? Has it gone down? And then I have one other comment. You're muted, Mr. Jackson.
So I believe it's pretty much the same. It may have improved a little. And we were using the 5% number. The fact that we had an uptick in the number of drivers is, the reason that I say that it may have improved. And I believe the number that we used was a back of the envelope number anyway, because to be able to know exactly the number of kids that are affected is kind of challenging. However, one of the things that I've been working out with First Student is to get a cursory count. And that's something that I requested. It's been a little challenging for them to do that in light of the fact that they have, a game of musical chairs going on with bus drivers, and some of the bus drivers are not on their regular routes. But it's certainly something that, I'd like to bring back to the board at a later date, which would probably give a truer picture of exactly, the number of kids that are being late.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. It seems to me that should be, I don't know, I'm not in the system. It seems to me it would be fairly simple. I mean, each of these students go to a school, and the school greets these kids when they get off the buses, and they take attendance, and there should be some sort of way to be able to keep track of how many are late at each of these schools. I mean, that's I don't know. Maybe it's more complicated than that. I understand, but here's the point I want to make, and that is, we seem to keep trying to fix a system that is like broke and it can't be fixed. I mean, this problem started, it actually kind of started before the pandemic, when we were having a shortage of drivers. And of course, the pandemic just made it a whole lot worse. And, a couple of years ago, before you came, Mr. Jackson, before the superintendent became the superintendent, even before some of the members of the board here on the board, we were discussing ways to diversify our transportation for our kids, to kind of, update our system, or even backdate it. I mean, at one time we were using DOT buses to transport our kids from high schools home during the day. It might have been the school too, but I know at least they were catching public transportation home. And I don't, it seems to me, instead of continuing to try to fix a system that has been broken for many years and probably going to remain broken for a while, why don't we try to update the system so that it meets today's needs? So I know we discussed that partially last week. I hope, I know that we talked about possibly putting together a sort of task force or committee around it. I don't know if that happened. And if it hasn't, I would again stress to my fellow board members and to the administration that we ought to start looking at how, because it's not going to get any better. And our parents are going to be stuck out there in the morning waiting for a bus to come without any idea when it's going to arrive, or in the afternoon wondering where their kids are an hour later. As you said, there are teachers that are waiting in the buildings an hour or more to see these buses off. There are parents that are waiting at those bus stops for these children, waiting for them to arrive. So it affects our families and our students and our staff, and we have a way to start diversifying. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson, Mayor Elicker, and then Mr. Conway, and then Dr. Jackson.
Thanks, Mr. Jackson. Are the same routes, same people impacted every day?
So Mayor, there has been some consistency on some of those. And, we've had some inconsistencies. For example, the parent that we exchanged emails on earlier today, at one point we had that fixed, but we, at other times, we had to put a different driver on the route, or conditions change on the street and it can result in some lateness. But that's something that would happen under general conditions anyway. But this is something that we're going to need to, spend some time looking into it, and we have already started that process, and we'll just have to, continue to monitor it and get back to you with any updates.
It just feels like, so compared to last time that we all talked, it feels like there hasn't been too much of a change in the overall situation. And it feels like we need a plan C. And other districts, I've just heard, are like paying parents to drive their kids to school, or we could reconfigure some of the routes for kids that maybe live a couple blocks from school if they're willing to walk to school. Lyft or Uber, private buses. I don't know what it is, but it feels like this is more of a urgent situation, and we should be thinking very creatively and outside the box to try to address it. Especially as you pointed out, as we get into the darker months, we could end up with more problems here. And I worry that the labor issues across the board don't seem to be getting any better. That just kind of hoping we're going to have more bus drivers and slowly training bus drivers is not going to get a fast enough result that we need.
Dr. Tracy,
I must say on that point that the CDC, CSDE, Connecticut State Department of Education Commissioner Charlene Tucker, they are aware of this situation. They've been talking to superintendents in different districts and all the superintendents together about the bus situation. It's not just New Haven. And what they're saying is that their drivers in the queue, they're trying to work with DMV to expedite the process. of getting certain things that they need to do to get these drivers out. And so we know that that is happening both in New Haven and other transportation um, groups outside of First Student. So we know that it's a challenge right across the board. And I know that we are working on what to do as we move forward. I don't think this is going to be solved just like right away. And of course, I'm concerned about the families who have to struggle and wait for a long time for arrival and dismissal. It's a real struggle. And this struggle is nationwide. And I know other systems have called in the National Guard to help with, our government's not there yet to call in the National Guards to help out what's going on, but we keep them apprised of what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think anyone disagrees that it's a difficult situation. As always, on my side, we're happy to help in any way that you need. We can have a small meeting and brainstorm about solutions, see if there's any resources that we can use to help out. So the offer's there.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy, Mayor Elicker. Mr. Conway, and then Dr. Jackson.
Yeah, Mayor Elicker has said everything that I wanted to say. And my concern is that it is getting, we're going to have less light. It's getting darker out. It's getting colder. And we have 8 months left in the school year, 8 months. I think that we do need to go to a plan C. If you listen to the themes, the food situation, we have to make adjustments with. Teachers are burning out, transportation, the climate of the building, hard to find. Everything's a challenge. Everything is, everything's a challenge of the pandemic. And I really see, I really don't see it getting, and I don't want to, throw darkness on it, but I just don't really see it getting any better if we don't start, working outside the box. I think we have to start thinking of the unimaginable. I think we have to start thinking of, and look at this as an opportunity. And I know if we put our minds together, me and Dr. Joyner have talked about this several times. We put our minds together, we could come out of this. We come out of this challenge of the pandemic. But when you talk about, we're doing Plan C with food. We're gonna have to do Plan C with teachers, do Plan C with transportation, do Plan C with the climate of the school. We just gotta look. We gotta flip this thing upside down and take this as an opportunity. So that's all I'm saying. To much is given, much is expected. And I'm not saying this is an easy job. I know it's not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Dr. Jackson, and then Dr. Joyner.
Okay, I had a couple questions. First, I have a good thing about the busing. I know we've been talking about all the hardships, but I just want to say that the ECA busing from Hill House has improved. So I'm hoping that it stays like that. So thank you for, I brought attention to that issue at the last meeting. So whatever happened, the little adjustment that happened, it seems to be working out a little bit better. So, that's a little plus for our busing amongst all the things that we're worried about. But that does seem to be working out better. And I had a question around the wellness with the teachers that we've heard about a couple of times this evening. Are we having any offerings specifically a little bit more than what we have with the EAP, like for mental health support and wellness efforts for our staff? Are we having, just wondering?
Ms. Jackson.
Me, Ms. Jackson? I just want to make sure. So one of the things I can tell you, Dr. Jackson, is that one of the things, and you're absolutely right, I think that not even just our teachers, but our paraprofessionals, all of our staff, including administrators, everyone has been significantly overwhelmed this month, related to all the things that we're talking about today. But one of the things that we've done immediately was really looking at two things. One, being able to, we sent out a survey to staff, really asking them how we can support them relative to their health and wellness. a lot of the things that we've gotten back so far, we have close to 200 staff members who have completed the survey relative to things that we can do as a district. A lot of folks wanting to be able to hold spaces to talk a little bit about some of the things that they're feeling. Other folks have talked about things like Reiki and meditation. So there are some things that we are going to do based off of a survey that we sent out to staff. So, you know, we also have a committee who actually EAP is a part of that. Our partners from EAP are a part of this, working with our social emotional learning team to also create spaces to provide some support to our staff. In addition to that, you know, I know that individually in some of the buildings, folks are really focusing a lot more on what is it that they can actually do for staff, you know, creating, you know, things in their staff lounges, really making sure that they're sending out, you know, motivational messages, because again, I think that even in the buildings, folks are recognizing that. So yes, we have sent out things for staff to do some things more concretely based off of their feedback, but also in the building, staff or, you know, administrators are taking that on as well. Additionally, I will tell you one of the things that we're hearing a lot about, you hear about it today, a lot about mental health and addressing challenging behaviors. We've actually asked for input from our staff, you know, creating a community of practice really around addressing, you know, student needs and challenging behaviors, because I know that teachers are struggling with that at this point in time. So those are two immediate things that we have put in place for our staff, and certainly more to come, and we'll keep you updated.
Thank you. And just one another comment about we heard about an issue with like a dog at one of the schools, and I just wanted to say that it's a coincidence, but I think I think at that school, at that park, there was another incident with that type of dog. So I don't know if somebody has a dog that they're sicking on people around there, but it was a significant bite where the person is under treatment. So without, you know, disclosing, but what I'm saying is that we had that issue with our student with that type of dog in the same area that happened to another child who was playing after hours. So I don't know if there's, you know, maybe we should have, I don't know how we find dogs or, you know, but if there's a person in that area that is targeting kids, we should be on the, just have that in our mind, because it's not just our student, but it happened outside of school, the same type of dog. And I believe it's the same dog that ran after the students. So I don't know if that goes to Chief Reddish, or I don't know if the mayor sends his people out there, but there's somebody with a dog that they're sicking on children over there. So I just thought that was very sickening to read that it happened to a student, and then I know of it happening to another kid in that same park within days of what was sent out to us.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Dr. Jordan?
Actually, Mr. Conaway and the mayor said a lot of what I'd like to say. I think we should create a structure as soon as possible to look into transportation and to think about, again, I deliberately mispronounced this word because we have to think outside the paradigm. And we have to say, well, in an emergency, and we're in one, who's eligible to transport kids to school and how much will it cost? And if you look across the country, as Dr. Tracy said, they're using National Guard, they're paying parents, and they're using other means. The other part about that is we also have to be concerned about liability. Are they insured? It's a really complex issue, just this one issue, getting the kids in school. And so we should probably create a structure to look at what's going well, what's not, and what's needed to deal with that problem. And we should probably do the same thing with the morale of teachers, because it's not the same in every building. And whereas you might have heard from a group of teachers from a particular building where they're having problems, in other buildings it's not quite that difficult. And Ms. Conaway, I'm sure you can say amen to that. That there's, you're right, you know, there's a varied response. And where it is really problematic, we need to, show up support for that person. And we need to try to think about how we can. Dr. Tracy is already paying people to take over classes if they have a prep period, and that's pretty good. And there are times when you do have to put kids in the cafeteria. I've had to do it without COVID. When you have a sickness or a lot of teachers out, you have to do that. It's unfortunate. We're an education system, and we have to make do. And our kids are already behind, so we have to ask our parents to help us more and ask the kids to help us more. And we have to identify those kids that are problems and put them in a position where we can help them so that they don't further detract from the climate in the building. And I'm not trying to say punish them, but we gotta help them. And I can give you specific examples of some of the abuse that teachers and aides have had to take from kids and from parents. And this is certainly not the time for that. I don't know if there ever is a time for that, but that's because they're suffering as well. So we're in a unprecedented crisis that threatens everything that we do. And we have to come together and recognize that we're not going to get out of that crisis unless we can set aside some of our trivial differences and try to understand the situation and work together to try to help things. We're really, Joe Biden said we're fighting for the soul of America. We really are. I mean, and oftentimes we don't realize until it's too late. So let's realize the urgency of the moment and try to create a structure and a process for identifying the most serious problems and doing the best we can to solve them. But we solve problems through people. So if we don't have eligible people, then that presents another problem. And board members are suffering too. They take these problems home with them. They can't sleep at night from thinking about, we're not doing this because we're trying to earn any money or anything like that. We're doing it because we love our community. We love children. And we might disagree with one another, but we all agree that we want to do the best job we can for our kids and for our parents. But we need everybody's support to do that. And I hope that we can create that structure and that process so we can start thinking outside the box or the paradigm or the paradigm, as I like to call it, and solve some of these problems. Think outside the paradigm, people.
Thank you, Dr. Julian. Manager?
I just want to let Dr. Jackson know that I just followed up with the chief and will let you know about the dog issue and see if they've what the status is on that.
Thank you.
So that was the conclusion of the report, and we're listening. And as Dr. Jordan said, shortage of personnel that we can't create ourselves. We have advertised, we're still waiting. We have to vet everyone who comes in to work with our kids, including part-time workers. Everyone has to be vetted through a process. Everyone now, an added layer, we have to make sure they're vaccinated before we even hire them. So there's a lot of protocols that we have to go through to make sure we get the right people to work with our students. And I must say, and I'm going to say that publicly, I'm going to commend Tiffany Jackson for the work she's doing with social emotional learning systems across the system. Gemma Jones Lumpkin, Carmen Carvana, and all their team, Danny Diaz, working closely with families. The problems are great. Homeless families, children homeless. There's a whole lot of things going on in our community. And unfortunately, everything falls on the doorsteps of the school. And so we have to focus on all those things to make sure our students are safe, our families are safe, our students are fed, our families are fed for those who are especially homeless. And not to say we can think outside the box, but it needs all of the ideas to come together as we work together. As again, if we're indeed a village, everyone works together to see what is best for the system, and it's not just one or two individuals, a number of individuals as collaborators together or stakeholders working on behalf of our students and our staff to make things happen. And I see it because I'm in the schools. I go around to the schools. I'm not just sitting here at central office. My team is not just sitting here central office. We're in the schools. We hear the call of the principals. We talk with teachers. We hear their concerns. But I must say, we're doing the best we can right now around student behaviors. Is there more to be done? Yes, there can be more to be done, but we also need the staff. And when you have classes without proper staff in place, we're gonna have multiplied issues. Because students know when it's not their real teacher. They know that. And on that note, I will end. Thanks for all the suggestions, and as Dr. Joyner said, working, and we'll create some of these structures, and we'll come back to see where we are. I am very concerned about the change of time. For many of our youngsters who have to wait out there in the dark, and for families who have to go to work, they're never going to leave their children there in the dark by themselves, and I don't want my families to also lose their jobs. So we'll explore some other means of how this will go for many of our families.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Seeing no hands raised, I will move on. I don't have a formal president's report at the moment, but I do want to take the time to congratulate Dr. Tracy and Dr. Joyner, who were honored this weekend for exemplary leadership, achievements, and contributions to their community. Dr. Joyner was honored by St. Jude's Children's Hospital, and Dr. Tracy was honored by the NAACP. And so congratulations to you both. A well-deserved honor.
Congratulations to the both of them.
Thank you.
Head Start report, Mr. Wilcox.
Thank you. I will just say I had the honor of being there for Dr. Joyner's honoring, and Dr. Joyner and Mrs. Joyner still can dance, and it was a beautiful sight. So I'll just leave it at that. Briefly on the Head Start report, we did meet last Thursday. The draft minutes are posted on the website. Just to let you all know, we're still have plenty of spaces for students, and staff are working hard to fill those spaces. This is a problem not just here in New Haven, it's across various other Head Start cities around the country. So they're still trying to work on that. Second thing I wanted to mention, they are recruiting for the policy councils. So they are working on having a robust policy council, which is made up of parents and other community folks with an interest in Head Start, that they're working on having representation from each of the Head Start sites. And so that's been going well. Third thing I wanted to mention is that the Focus Area 2 review has been moved to January by Head Start. They've rescheduled it. This is where they're going through, and one of the things they look at is the financial side of things, but that's been moved till January. And the final thing I wanted to mention, ending on a really nice note here, is things are very much progressing on the health clinic, adding a health clinic to the Mayo School site. And my understanding is that we will be seeing contracts related to that coming to the board in November. So they are working towards having that available, and some more is coming. The chances are that it will open sometime after the first of the year. So this isn't a next school year thing. This is this school year thing is the way it's looking now, but we'll have more information in the coming weeks once the contracts come in. So that's Head Start.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. I don't see questions, so we can move on to the city works building.
This will be very brief. We did meet as we were supposed to on the 14th. There is a comprehensive status report that's posted as part of the meeting materials that goes through, various maintenance projects and other major issues related to the school's physical plan.
Mr. Wilcox?
For finance and operations, I don't really
Hold
have
on,
any.
Hold on,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Johnson has a question.
Thank you,
Okay.
Madam President. I don't know, maybe you could save this for the next meeting or something. Can you tell us what's happening with those surplus schools that we have? I know Strong is being used by Yale for testing. The school out in Quinnipiac and the West Rock School. Could you give us an idea sometime in the future what's happening with those buildings?
Yes, well, we could get that information at the next Finance and Operations Committee meeting on Monday. One thing I will report is that there is the engineering study going on all the school spaces, and that was reported this last week. That is on track, which I believe means that it's moving towards a December completion of that engineering report, which would cover all of our school buildings, including those as far as the general state of the buildings and some of the major issues that are connected to that.
Thank you. There's also one other building that wasn't used as a school, but I believe belongs to the Board of Education, which is 333 Valley Street, which is adjacent to the police substation over there and in the West Rock School. Could you add that to your list of properties to report on, please?
Yes, that was Valley Street, you said 333 Valley?
Yes, it's right next to the police substation, right between the police substation and West Rock School. I don't know how it became our property, but it is, so I'd like to know what's going on with it.
Yes, I'll work with Mr. Lamb. This is a warning. We'll be chatting about how to structure that agenda item for Finance and Operations Committee meeting. So for Finance and Operations, we'll just look into that, as well as I don't think I have anything else to, since the primary thing was the food service and the supply chain request, which was already covered tonight. The final thing for me listed here is an update on the students' elections. This doesn't need to be a standing agenda item, so it can be dropped from further agendas. It'll be a periodic update. It's just a reminder, though, that the student election process will start again in late winter or midwinter, and so now is a great time for building leaders and teachers and student government folks to start preparing students to run for that process. Thank you.
So that's seeing no questions. Governance report, Dr. Jackson.
Good evening. In your packet from governance, you have second reading for policy 5145.53 on transgender and gender nonconforming youth. We will vote on this at the next meeting. A couple of great things that are happening with governance. There is a policy support intern. She is a Yale junior. Is she a junior, Tiffany? I forget what year she is, but she's amazing. She brings a lot of, she brings youth to our committee, a lot of fresh ideas, and someone who really wants to participate in our governance activities. And she'll also be reviewing some of the policies from CABE that we will be updating and offering, and just to assist us. And before she's here, Jasmine, I would like for her to introduce herself, but I just want to let you know that in the short time that she's been with us, I want to say me, because I'm a little selfish because she's that amazing, but I'm going to say with us. But the short time that she's been with us, I had asked her about something that we've been working on. It's been slow moving around parents who opt their children out of standardized testing, which, by the way, I still haven't gotten that list. I don't know if Dr. Tracy, you can help me with that list. But she drafted something that was just amazing and hit it out of the park. And I'm actually waiting to hear from my colleague, Mr. Wilcox. I want his input on that. and it will be coming to you shortly. But she's here. Jasmine, don't be nervous. These are all my colleagues and they'll welcome you. Just tell them a little about yourself and what you're going to be doing.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine. I'm a sophomore at Yale, studying political science and history. I'm a California native, so about to brave the cold winters here on the East Coast, but I'm ready. I'm here to work, as Dr. Jackson said, as a policy support intern. So that means I'll be working with the Board of Ed, hopefully, and all of your committees, crafting a schedule with Ms. Tiffany Jackson and helping in any way I can to really make New Haven a better place than it already is. So I'm really excited to work with all of you. Thank you.
And I really think that Dr. Joyner, I think that you're really going to enjoy having her assist you in places that you need help with. She's a really pleasant person, very easy to work with. So welcome, Jasmine, to the New Haven Board of Education crew.
Mr. Conway?
I'd also like to say to Jasmine, she could come to the to our food service group too, just to see how it works. You know, maybe, you know, there's some help there. Our food service task force, Jasmine. So, you know, our next meeting is 11:10. So you're welcome.
We'll see, because, you know, I don't know how much I'm going to lend her out. You know, I'm a little selfish with her, but, you know, next thing I'm going to hear my colleague Wilcox talking about finance and operations, you know, but we'll let you know. No, just kidding. She's going to be wonderful. And Larry, she definitely will be able to lend some support and food in the food policy part.
Okay, she might have a classmate that might be interested in doing some work as well.
Exactly. So Tiffany, is there anything else that we need to add? No, right? We're good?
I think the other thing, just to let you know, because Jasmine is going to be helping, hopefully to be a nudge with the committees to really have folks take a look at their policies so that we can have a policy calendar laid out for the year.
Yes.
The other thing that Jasmine's going to be helping with, quite honestly, is some of the administrative stuff. There's a lot of policies that we've passed, you know, that haven't made it to the website. So she's going to go back and really try to make sure that some of those things have happened. And then also, if you notice in your packet, they should be in there, the CABE highlights. What she's been doing is CABE sends us some highlights. She's been synthesizing some of that, and we'll put that as we have that in your package, just so you can see, you know, what legislators are thinking about and what CABE is thinking about as far as policy work. So she'll also be working on those things as well. And it's been extremely helpful. So really the next goal is really she's creating a template for a calendar for the rest of the year with committees.
Excellent work. And that is my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Dr. Jordan, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I think that this is a time where we certainly have to give credit where credit is due. There's a person not in the room and there's a person in the room, two people in the room. One, Claudia Merson has been helping us out forever. And we have a really great partnership with that. And Tiffany Jackson and Dr. You got the Jackson sisters. Tiffany is always looking for external resources. And quite frankly, where I've developed university partnerships, we had a lot of Jasmines and they got course credit for it. I mean, you're doing some clinical work, Jasmine, and I would hope that you could either have an independent study class or talk to your professor about giving you course credit for this, because this is the stuff you do once you get your degree, and you're doing it before you get your degree, and you're doing it at an unprecedented time in American history when the system is faced with racial turmoil, confusion about how to recognize students that come from different backgrounds, and a pandemic that's really making a mess of everything, as well as our response to it. So I'm a retired Yale professor, and if there's anything I can do to try to help you get some credit for it and bring more of your like-minded colleagues into the system to support us, I would appreciate that conversation.
Oh, I have one more thing to add. I'm sorry, quickly, with an update on the alternative school policy is well in the working. We're getting, Tiffany is getting the people to the table who need to be participating in revamping that. I just want to say that it's such a critical policy. There's a lot to be done with this policy around literally revamping how we do some of the alternative instruction. So I'm just asking, just saying that when the policy does come to you, is going to probably be something that you have been waiting for and haven't really, and we haven't been doing it like that. We know that we are having some issues with the homebound, with the amount of hours they're getting, not medical homebound, but the ones that aren't medically homebound. So
Regular homebound.
Regular homebound. It's been a hot topic. I think almost all of my colleagues have weighed in with passion around this policy. So I'm looking for this to really start getting moving, and I'm just supporting Tiffany and getting everything she needs and all the resources she needs to get that done. So, and then that ends my report.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Okay, Mr. Conley, food service.
Okay, we had our meeting, and I'll just let you know that the minutes are online. I'll give you some highlights of some of the things that we have been doing. One of the things we've been talking about is the food gaps, and food gaps are when school is not in session. The next one's coming up in November for Thanksgiving, and we're trying to put some stop gaps in place for those individuals who need food during that time. The next one after that will be December, the Christmas break. So just be on the lookout online for those places where one could get food during these gaps of education. The other thing that we're working on is the life-threatening allergy advocacy peer group. We're putting that together, and I know that Mr. Lamb and Ms. Jackson are working on getting that, so we could just run that through the system. The other thing is the life-threatening food allergy policy. We want to continue to monitor that as we roll that out. We're working on other food policies that are being updated. And as you could see, you heard the presentation from Mr. Gormany and Miss Sherry. So a lot of stuff is going on in the food advocacy group, and it's really, it's a group that could be easily forgotten about, but it's really a significant part of the functioning of the entire New Haven Board of Education. So you could see more about what we do and what we've been doing on this service task force online. The minutes are online. Again, our next meeting is November 10th, 2021. And I just want to just thank the Miss Sherry and the support staff that's been just helping keep this task force on track. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the executive session that we have there. We don't need to go into. So I have nothing else on the agenda.
One second.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
motion to adjourn the
1
meeting.
second. I just want to say, since we were recognizing people who got recognized, right? I don't want to leave people out.
Mhm.
Gemma Joseph Lumpkin is also being honored this coming weekend by the Boy Scouts. And she is being recognized for her efforts with that organization. And I just would like for the community to also know that and that congratulate her for that.
Madam Chair, I'd like to add to that. I think it was the writer from Texas, forgot her name, who said that Fred Astaire was a great dancer, but his dancing partner did everything he did backwards. And I think that I've known Gemma since she was a kid, and I was close to her mom, and I taught her sister. I was with her Saturday night, and I watched her go out on the dance floor with her 2 children. Now, imagine what it is to do the job that she does, working probably 16 hours a day, and then having to raise 2 young children by herself. She's got some help, but not as much help as you typically need. And I think this is a well-deserved honor. And I think we have other people in our system like that have taken on responsibilities voluntarily. Tiffany does it. And there are people in the system. So this is a caring community. We just come together as a coalition and support each other. And I appreciate what you do, Gemma. Really do. So I want a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Dr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Mr. Flores, no longer with us, Dr. Bruner,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.